Well, so far we've talked about two prospecting strategies. We talked about door to door, where you're actually just walking in face to face, having a conversation. Oftentimes, those prospecting strategies can even be a one-stop close, and you'll hear me reference that throughout different training modules. That's what I'm referring to. The second prospecting method was we're going to call over the phone to schedule an appointment to go out face to face. Now, very similar to that is the third prospecting strategy we're going to talk about in this video, which is the phone sales numbers game or prospecting strategy, where we're doing everything over the phone. And the great thing about cash discounting is that traditional processing is one of those things that's a little bit more challenging to sell over the phone. There are unique challenges to that. But when we're talking about cash discounting, it's amazing because you really can do the entire process over the phone. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind here when we're talking about this numbers game of selling over the phone. First of all, I would highly encourage you to treat the sales process as two completely different stages. I've talked about this before. I'm going to talk about it again, but you have the first stage, which is scheduling the appointment. Now, scheduling the appointment is just like scheduling an appointment to go out face to face, except that at the end of the call, instead of saying I can come out and meet with you, you're scheduling a time to call back. And get them back on the phone, obviously. So there's really no difference there in terms of strategy, but the numbers do play out a little bit differently when you're over the phone. Okay. So when you're over the phone, for the entire process, you're either going to have an appointment scheduler, somebody scheduling appointments for you, or you're going to be calling to schedule your own appointments. And so, again, that appointment part of the numbers game that we talked about a couple of videos ago, that doesn't change at all. You make your 20 contacts a day, you get your 3, 4, 5 appointments, depending on how experienced you are. And then you're either passing those appointments off to somebody else to close, or you're closing them yourself. Now, you can do that all on one phone call, but that is actually difficult and something I try to avoid that unless I really feel like I've got a great read on the merchant and they're in a place where they're ready to talk to me, because I do like to kind of send an email out or something to them before I reach back out on the phone. But at any rate, once you switch gears and you're into this section of now you're actually trying to close the appointment, your closing rate should start at least 10% and it should work its way up from there. So very, very similar to the out in the field face-to-face thing. But on the phone, what I find one of the big differences is that it usually is pretty much a one-call situation to close them when you get that closing call. So let me be clear. We have one call to schedule the appointment. Then we have another time where we're calling them back to sell them there. That next time you're on the phone, you really need to get them to say yes that time. Now, there may be another call or two to get the paperwork completed, but we really want to get them done right then and there. So as far as that prospecting strategy, the only real difference in the strategy of the phone appointment to face versus the phone appointment to phone call is simply that, number one, it's a little bit more urgent on that next call, because when you're face to face, you can just go back out again. But when you're on the phone, they're probably not going to pick up the phone again if you call and you aren't able to sell them on that next call. So there's a little more urgency to make sure you close the deal on that next, phone call with them. And the other shift is the paperwork. And so the paperwork is a little bit more challenging. We'll talk more about that in the, how to close cash discounting in the other module. But that is a little bit more of a challenge and something that you have to work on. So other than that, though, a lot of similarities. It can work great with cash discounting. And so that's really our third prospecting strategy.